Okay, teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you already know how we get down here in the Move Swiftly world. We keep it 1000% organic, and we are here to serve you in a way in which you may be going through something difficult, any challenges you may be having, whatever it is you're struggling with. We are here to indirectly tell you you are not going through it alone. Today, I have Heather Parsons, the founder of Summit CFO. And, Heather, you're the guy, you had to make me do some research on exactly what the term was. We've had fractional CMOs here, chief marketing officers, but out of, I believe this is probably close to 1,000 episodes at this point, you are officially the first fractional CFO to bless the Move Swiftly mic. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be on the show.
Yes, and we're happy to have you. And I got to tell you, as I was tuning into your story, kind of your backstory and how you grew up. Now, my freshman year of college, I was in Tennessee. I was in East Tennessee actually, and I took some trips to like we were freshmen in college, so we drove all across Tennessee and stuff like that. And we would always see the people who were born there. And as I was listening to your story, I was kind of thinking of one of my favorite books, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. In it, that you show a lot of grace to your parents and how they raised you, but you also kind of mentioned you had to learn finance, you had to learn entrepreneurship, you had to learn a lot of leadership things when you kind of branched out on your own. So the best way to start is kind of just go back there a little bit, talk a little bit about your background, kind of your childhood, what school was like for you and all that stuff, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So growing up, I did grow up in rural East Tennessee, which you can probably hear in my southern
You're
accent.
taking me back to my freshman year in college. Yes, I can hear.
Yeah. So I grew up in like the Tri-Cities area.
Yeah.
Um, one of six kids in a two-bedroom trailer. I had wonderful parents growing up.
Yeah.
They were hustlers. They always taught us how to work hard and do the right things.
Mhm.
But they came from a generation where the thoughts of generational wealth, it wasn't even something they considered
Mhm.
because they were trying to figure out how to feed these kids, how to keep the lights on and the bills paid. And they didn't really know how to give that gift to me. So whenever I was 19 years old, I joined the military. I was in basic training on 9/11, which was just a couple of days ago from
Oh,
whenever we're talking here. Yeah.
oh. So what was that?
So
How was that day like for you though? Like what? Because
honestly,
I grew up in DC, and I have a lot of family in New York, and you got to think it hit the Pentagon and it also hit the Twin Towers. And I remember just we tried to reach out to family in New York, and the whole phone things were shut down. So just kind of just I didn't even know that happened. What was that like day for you like?
it was bizarre,
Yeah,
to put it mildly. So I was at a point in basic training with the Air Force where you're kind of out doing field training.
yeah.
So we were out in the field, kind of, for lack of a better way of putting it, playing capture the flag. So, okay, you're the enemy, you're trying to go in and save these hostages or do all these sorts of things.
Right.
And it was an automatic, hey, you've got 15 minutes, get your shit and get on the bus. It's time to
Okay.
go back right now.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't know what happened. We didn't hear about 9/11 until later. I've honestly, outside of a few news clips, I've never really watched much of the footage.
Right.
My bonus dad, his office was in the news section of the Pentagon. So
Hmm.
he lost a lot of his teammates
Oh my God.
on that day.
Right.
But it was something that you never forget. But it also lit a fire in me about, how patriotic I am, how much that I think we need to really fight for people's rights and take care of our country.
Hmm.
So it was an intense and interesting day, something I did not expect, but we survived. We get through it.
Right. And so, okay, you're in the Air Force, and then eventually you come out into the working world. Like, what was that transition like for you? Because that experience, everything you just described, can be it can be difficult to adjust when it comes to people who haven't seen it in that perspective. And then, obviously you coming from a rural town where it's not a lot of people, what were your experiences like especially after that day, but as you transition into your next phase?
So being in the military was the most eye-opening experience I could have asked for.
Hmm.
So being in basic training on 9/11, my first duty assignment was in Incirlik Air Base in Turkey.
Hmm.
So my first time on an airplane was going to basic training, and my first time going out of the country was going to somewhere that I didn't even know where it was actually at on the map. So it was eye-opening for me. So I came back to the States after getting out of the military and spending about 6 years in Europe. And I knew I had to find a job. I was an explosive specialist. I worked on building bombs for aircraft, and I had no skills outside of driving a forklift on how to survive.
Wow.
So I got a job working as an admin assistant in a local factory and started going to school. I knew I was mom at the time, single mom,
Oh my
and
God,
I had to
you have
do
a kid.
something.
Whoa, whoa.
Yeah,
So when did that happen?
yeah. So whenever I was in the military, I had my daughter.
Oh,
Uh, she's amazing and is a gift, and she's a freshman in college this year. But
there you go.
I had to figure it out. I had to figure out how to take care of us, so, and I did not want her to have a lot of the struggles that I did, which is why I really started this business. I did not want her to have to become a mother and go right back to work.
Right.
That was something that I really struggled with. Similar to kind of getting out of the military. Getting out was a hard transition for me,
Right.
especially going into the corporate environment, because those were skills that I didn't really have. I didn't really know the game that was being played. You know what I mean? Because in the military, it's very different and it's a lot more in your face. People, if they have something to say, they'll say it to you. You don't have to worry about the things that aren't said or
The shady shit like behind your back, behind closed doors.
right.
The corporate environment, that's just working world in general. So you're completely right about that.
Yeah. So honestly, I had some ladies who took me under their wing, and I'm a huge fan of mentorship. I think you should always have a hand up and a hand down. So working with somebody who's ahead of you in business and bringing somebody along for the ride, because none of us get here on our own.
Thank you for saying that. I mean, thank you so much for saying, because the mentorship piece is so important, especially when folks are really struggling. They're really going through a lot. Again, not really much schooling. You have a daughter. Now you leave the military. You have to learn from scratch. And just the being around people to crack a door, maybe get you looking through a window and seeing a vision, that can be so much for people. So as you listeners, whether you are, like I tell you at the beginning, whether you are that person struggling or you know of someone that is struggling, it is your obligation. It is not, I know we're recording this in a political season, but it's not going to be the job of the government to help you. You got to help you. You got to be the person that actually is willing and putting in the work. And the reason I bring that up is because, as like for me, when I first got to college, I wanted to be a business major. And what turned me off about it was the financial accounting class. So, comparing that to kind of your situation when you got out, you ended up learning and mastering the whole accounting element to the point now where you're actually calling yourself like a chief financial officer. So walk us through those. What made you decide that accounting was going to be the thing that you wanted to plant your flag on? And then, what were the steps in which you took to make it so you actually made a success out of it?
Sure. So for me, accounting was something that I fell into. I've always been really good with numbers, but I've always loved business.
Right.
Even since a friend of mine asked me not too long ago, like, when is the first time you can remember having business-minded thoughts? And I'll tell you a really funny short story.
Yes.
Very first time I got in trouble in school, I was like kindergarten, first grade.
Yeah.
I was buying pencils at the school bookstore in the morning for a quarter and selling them for 50 cents to $1 in the afternoon. So like my brain has been,
guys.
there you go. So my brain has always kind of been wired that way. And it's something that causes me to really love business. So I have a master's degree in business and I have a master's degree in accounting. So I try to use my accounting knowledge to solve business problems, which is why being a CFO is a perfect fit for me. So for folks who don't really know what a CFO is and what they do, they are the person on your team who helps you look forward. All about that strategy. What's your goal? What do you want to do? Why are you even in business? And how do we get you there? Right. So your bookkeeper, your tax preparer, all those people look at what you've done in the past and make sure it's accounted for correctly and you pay your taxes. and don't get your hand smacked with the government. But a CFO is somebody who does something totally different part of your brain. They really try to elevate you going in the other direction.
Hmm. What would that other direction be?
So whatever your goals are, right? So no one in business really wants to stay stagnant.
Right.
So they're really trying to help you figure out, how do I use my cash correctly?
Right.
How do I build out my, my forecast and my plan so that I can get to this overarching goal,
Right.
whether it's sitting on the beach for half of the year or it's something totally different. Maybe they want to invest in real estate, which is one of the things that I love helping my clients with as well, is creating that generational wealth piece.
Yes.
But they're the person there to kind of help bridge that gap and be that financial thought partner for the business.
Right. Well, that's why I'd actually, because I'm glad you brought it up, is eventually you got to a point where you're not working necessarily for these companies, but you started to become like a real estate entrepreneur and, talking to people a lot about how to invest in real estate the right way. What took you there, and what were some of the challenges and the things that you wanted to, the sort of the message that you wanted to create when you're talking about real estate?
So around real estate, and I love that you brought up Robert Kiyosaki. I love his book. He is definitely one of my favorite people to follow. And he changed my mindset a lot. I always knew that real estate was one of the ways to get to generational wealth. And I was curious about it. So I started learning and invested in land for a little while and then started flipping houses back around 2019. And part of the reason I did that was going back to the beginning of my story,
Thanks.
whenever, thinking about my daughter and our kids and how we are going to protect them and create generational wealth go forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so first of all, for the regular listeners, now if you're new around here, you don't know this, but for my regular listeners, here we go again. Robert Kiyosaki. Please, if you're listening to, I don't know how many shows I have to do, how many people I have to bring on, how many I have to talk about this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, but we need to get you on the show in some way, shape, form, or fashion, because so many people, even when I was just doing solo episodes, Heather, I mean, so much of his teaching, because he speaks on this element of mentorship. So much of his work touches on what we're about. So again, someone has come on and spoken about the legend Robert Kiyosaki when it comes to Rich Dad Poor Dad. So as far as what you mentioned in regards to flipping houses and buying land and all that kind of stuff, what's the advice that you normally give to people that want to kind of do it as a side hustle, and they do it but they're not in it, like, to make sure the cash flow is coming? Because you hear a lot of it, and in many ways there could be a lot of shady deals going on. There's a lot of people who may be taking advantage of folks and stuff like that. So can you give people just some quality advice in regards to how you go about doing it and how they should be, what would be the proper steps be?
Sure. So when it comes to like flipping and getting started into real estate, a couple of things that I always keep in mind. Don't forget that your time has value, but getting started, go to your local RIA, don't just talk to the random people there, go talk to the people who are on the board, because they've been vetted and they know who's a shark in the room and who's not, because there are plenty of people out there who are gurus who will try to help you, and they will be profitable and you will not. And figure out a system right away. One of the things that my husband and we still do flips on occasion, a few a year. Really getting granular in how you track your cost matters, because at the end of the day, it can mean the difference between being profitable and barely scraping by. And no one wants to spend that amount of time and not be profitable.
Right.
And not every good deal is worth doing. So we look for high margin deals if we're going to do a flip. I really don't want to take on anything that's not going to make, and I'm in Tennessee, keep this in mind.
Right. Are you
If it's not going to make,
still in like East Tennessee?
I'm in Nashville now.
Yeah, I've been
But
there.
we do,
It's a
yeah,
nice spot.
yeah. But we still invest in rural markets.
Mhm.
So like a 50 grand out the box, like, hey, if it's not at least 50 grand, I'm probably not doing that flip, because there are so many things that can go wrong.
Mhm.
Like, it's not worth it. So it's better to pass and do fewer deals than to just jump right in.
Right, understood. Now, when it comes to the business that you're currently running and the work that you're now, is this kind of walk us through your day to day? And because the majority of people that listen to this show are business owners of 20 or more employees. How do you serve the business community as the CFO? And I know you had mentioned making it so the entrepreneur or the head person, the CEO, whoever it is, you making it so that they're focusing on what they want to do. Just kind of walk us through the unique way in which you're able to help them and serve them when it comes to how you're going to help them.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, the main thing is I'm not just an accountant or somebody who does numbers. I'm an entrepreneur first.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I think,
Say it with your chest, girl. Say it with your chest. I like the way you
right?
say it.
Uh, but that's the lens I approach this from. I'm not here to regurgitate your financials. That's boring.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm here to turn your financial information into KPIs
Mhm.
and other performance indicators so that we can do something in your business.
Mhm.
I look at your goals, but then I also go in, I do a financial review every month.
Right.
I, excuse me,
Yes.
sorry, my allergies are absolutely killing me today.
You're a fuck.
Um, I really try to look at a forecast and where we think we're going to end the year so that if we do nothing else, what does that look like for you? Is that something you're okay with, or should we make some tweaks along the way?
Mhm.
And then I provide them with a scorecard that says, okay, for your revenue and your cash flow, are we red, yellow, or green? They don't need 9,000 different decision points. 12 is plenty.
Right.
And of those 12 decision points, we pick 3 that we're going to work on over the next month.
Mhm.
We create an action plan and they implement it. I am the person there who brings that suggestion to the table like, hey, do you know which products are actually profitable?
Right.
Do you know, like, is your accounting costing you an additional tax bill?
Mhm. You mentioned something really powerful, and I don't want it to get brushed over, but recognizing those KPIs, those key performance indicators. And when you first came on, you noticed my shirt go high level, and this is something that I actually still have struggled with for years because as a solopreneur, as a person that is the entrepreneur, it's difficult for us to figure out where we should be spending our time because we could be doing so many things. And one of the things I've learned, especially with high level, is to put more of a focus on making sure my email list is on point versus trying to put stuff out there on social media and stuff like, because my typical client is going to be looking through their email for serious emails versus scrolling through social media and all that. Not to say I don't post on social media, but it's more important that I'm focusing on building a solid list that I can reach out to, stuff like that. So when it comes to the entrepreneur that may be just starting out, maybe they're just going into business for themselves, is that someone that you're able to work with, even though they may not have a certain budget, or have you gotten to a point where you're only helping the company that is already at a certain amount in sales, has a certain amount of employees? How do you decipher that? Because I know as an entrepreneur, you got to make sure you're getting a return for your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
I generally work with folks who've already got a couple of employees because it is really difficult to implement as a solopreneur,
Right.
because you're trying to do it all.
Yes.
However, I got in this business because I do not want small businesses to fail.
Yeah.
Small businesses within 5 years or 50% of them are gone. And I think that is a ridiculous statistic.
Yeah.
So I work with clients who, 500K to a million or more,
Hmm.
but I also take on some pro bono clients
Right.
that are trying to grow.
Yeah. And how are you seeing things play out in the future for you, like when it comes to like maybe what's next, maybe your 10-15 year vision for it? Is it a setup where you have actual place where you can help people and then small business owners could come in and maybe you could teach them business courses? What is the next phase for you or that you're envisioning?
So, as somebody who loves real estate,
Yeah.
I don't know that the talent that I'm really looking to add to my organization is in one location.
Mm.
So, I will probably always be a hybrid employer.
Yeah.
You know, um, when it comes to working with clients. I think each business is unique.
Yeah.
So I will likely be going to them instead of them coming to me.
Yes. How is it though, as a person who loves real estate, especially, and I've been in Tennessee again. I've driven from Knoxville all the way to Nashville, Memphis in one night. It wasn't the best decision at all, but we were 18-year-old kids. But if I had your mindset where you're seeing all this land and you want to build on it, how would you say you've grown from, maybe the small girl who was being raised there to now you see actual potential dollars whenever you see a slot of land?
So everything for me, whenever it comes to real estate, is all about profitability and improving the community.
Mm,
So I'm a huge fan of value add,
hmm.
multifamily in particular.
Yes.
So there's enough stuff that's going on that
Right.
needs somebody to come in and give it a little TLC,
Yeah.
and it's more profitable.
Right. All
So
right.
I don't focus as much on like ground up development.
Mhm. Yeah, I understand. I understand. So if anyone's listening in, where do you normally send them to get in touch with you? How they can reach out if they want to hear more?
Sure. So the easiest way to reach out to me and get in touch is through my website, thesummitcfo.com. And you can also reach out to me via email and cfo@thesummitblue.com.
Great, great. And all that will be included in the show notes as well. So, Heather, the final thing I do with all the shows is the way to close it out is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You are a young girl growing up in East Tennessee. You're seeing things, you want business, but it's like you can't get it as much as you really want to dive into it. Pretend that young girl has come into the Zoom room, give her some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
Sure. Yeah. For me, the main thing in business is something that I heard a long time ago. If you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together.
Mm.
Build out your advisory community, do it early, surround yourself with people who are doing the deal,
Right.
who are out there running a business, who have better things to do than talk about other people. Um, and just
Yeah.
find your tribe and community.
Yes, I have absolutely nothing to add to that. That was excellent. I look forward to staying in touch with you and keeping up with your work. So, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.